It's 10 at 3 time in Tennessee. What's up, y'all? How you doing? Wes Rucker here coming to you from WBIR World Headquarters, as we're calling it, or I'm calling it. We decided earlier in the week that we weren't sure if there was any other WBIRs everywhere, but if there are, we are the headquarters. You are not, and even though it's the holidays, we will meet you outside, and we will fight you about that. How are you doing today? How's everything going in your world? Hope it's good. Hope you're getting ready for Christmas. Still very, very short of the Christmas shopping list. Again, cutting it. Past couple years have been getting better at not doing things last minute. Fell off the wagon this year. It's bad. It's bad on these streets. We're a little bit behind on the Christmas shopping. Need a good weekend to happen there. Kind of wish that there were no Tennessee basketball games this weekend. That would probably help, but you know what? We work. That's what we do. Joined today not just by Lord of the Streams Tom Barkley, but also Ms. Ainsley back there. How are you doing?
I am great. Thanks so much. How are you?
I'm doing great. Are you excited to be sitting there for the first time hitting the buttons?
I am so excited. There are so many buttons over here, Wes. I can't wait to hit them all.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a couple over here too, just to keep you on your toes during the show. Because can I tell you a little secret just between us?
Absolutely.
I don't know what a lot of these buttons do.
All right. Well, that's great for my blood pressure. Thank you, Wes.
You're welcome. That's what I'm happy. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help. In a pretty good mood today. Came in a little bit early. Did some recording in the studio for some holiday stuff. You know, it's the holidays, not just for y'all. It's the holidays for us too. Now we usually work during the holidays, but we don't want to work quite as much as we normally do unless there's big breaking news. So, little secret, we put some stuff in the can, get some stuff recorded for y'all over the holidays. Now, for this show in particular, we will have fresh episodes just about every day next week. So that's good. One of those days, Monday or Tuesday, we're going to do a lot of recording. Might need some hot tea in here, but we're gonna get it done those 2 days to bring you some live stuff and then some stuff for the holidays also. But today we were doing some stuff in the big studio, and Emily sent me a text this morning saying, "Hey, you show up about 1:30 or so, do some stuff in the studio," and I said, I'll be there at 1:29, and I'm going to roll in straight to the studio singing Asia's Heat of the Moment. And then she just kind of laughed it off, moved on. And then a couple hours later, it's about 1:15, she's like, "By the way, do you want to know what we're talking about on the show at 1:30? I said, "No, I already told you. I'm singing Asia's Heat of the Moment. That's what I'm doing." Although I think for copyright, I wasn't able to do that, so we did some Tennessee athletics end of the year stuff. I would have rather just sat there and done a little bit of air guitar to Asia's Heat of the Moment because it came on the Spotify this morning, and it made me happy. It's a Friday song. I don't know why. It's just one of those songs that you hear it sometimes and you're like, meh. On Friday, it slaps. On Friday, you're like, I'm ready for the weekend now. I'm ready for the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, there's a bunch of stuff going on this weekend. Obviously, the college football playoff starts tonight. Bama at Oklahoma down there in Norman. A couple teams that Tennessee played, and one should have beaten, one really should have beaten and didn't. But nonetheless, those teams beat Tennessee. Those teams are in the playoff. They are playing tonight there in Norman. That game's, I believe, on the ABC family of networks. And then Saturday is got a triple header. Only one game to maybe really get excited about. That would be the first one, Miami at Texas A&M. That's kind of a banger to get things going. It's kind of a bummer that one's kicking off at 11 p.m. Central or 11 a.m. Central over there in College Station. Even for the Aggies, like Reveille, they can get up and get going, right? They got not really a military school, but they kind of act like one. They get up and get going early in the day. But that's a great stadium, a big stadium. Kind of wish that one was at night, but it's not. It is the nooner. And then Tulane at Ole Miss down there. A little bit of a Delta flavor for that game at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. That's on the TNT, True TV, HBO Max combination of networks. And I think that's Ole Miss is a 17.5-point favorite in that one. But, of course, there is the intriguing stuff there going on with Lane Kiffin not there. Pete Golding is there. We'll see how things are. I mean, it's a college football playoff game in Oxford. It's probably the biggest thing that's happened in Oxford ever. I'm thinking of biggest things that have happened in Oxford, Mississippi, and I can't think of a really long list there. And a couple of them might be a little bit not fun to think about. So, that's a big deal. Congratulations to Ole Miss on that season. That's a big thing, hosting a CFP game. And then the nightcap, which will, I guess, start also I don't think the lights will be on at the beginning of this game because that is James Madison at Oregon, 7:30 Eastern, which will be 4:30 p.m. Pacific. The Dukes going out there to Eugene down there at Outson Stadium, beautiful Outson Stadium, where, again, they say before every game, never rains at Outson Stadium. We'll see what the weather is, but 20.5-point favorite for Oregon there. Well, that could even be uglier than that. I don't know. I'm glad to see the Tulanes and James Madisons. I been a little bit of talk back and forth on whether this is good. Should they be there? Should they not be there? I don't know. I mean, two non-Power 4 programs feels maybe a little bit much, but as someone who started his career covering FCS football, I love it when smaller teams get in there and get a chance. Now, there have been non-Power 4 teams that I think would have had maybe a better chance in some years than these two this year, but that's why they play the game. You never know. And there's a lot of upheaval down there at Ole Miss, so who knows what that's going to look like, right? I mean, that could be interesting, and Tulane's got some players, some good players. Wonder how Chris Brazel II feels about his old Tulane teammates playing in the CFP, although I guess technically he got to play in it last season, so even Steven there. But I'll watch the games, and I hope that they're good. But let's put it this way. I've got backup plans if they're not if they're not very good. And I'm hoping to watch them. I say that I have a toddler at home who may have other ideas, but I'm hoping that we can do the whole, hey, buddy, what if we play Hot Wheels while we're watching the game? Think about that. And then we got some family coming in from Bloomington, Indiana on Saturday night for dinner. Wonder what they're going to want to talk about. I wonder what the IU contingent of the family is going to want to talk about at Christmas this year. It might be the fact that Indiana football is undefeated and is in the college football playoff, one of the favorites to win the national championship, just beat Ohio State, and it's Indiana football. And so I imagine they will be decked in their crimson and cream, and they will be taunting probably the rest of the family there Saturday night for that. And then, interestingly, this weekend, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, Tennessee basketball playing Sunday, not Saturday, this weekend. Normally, Reverend Rick Barnes doesn't play a lot of games on Sunday unless they got to, but they got this one Sunday. Gardner Webb is coming to Thompson Bowling Arena / Food City Center / whatever you want to call it. I have a rule, by the way, and I'll mention this. Anytime Tennessee Athletics plays Gardner Webb or Evansville in any sport, Tennessee should win that game by about 1 million points, runs, however you want to describe it. And why do you say that? Because those are the only two Division I programs that wanted me to walk on to their team as a baseball player. And here's the rule. If you as an athletic department ever even considered the possibility of me being an athlete at your school, even as a walk-on, not on scholarship, just as a walk-on with some book money, if you are one of those schools, you should not be able to beat Tennessee in anything. That's a rule. I don't care what it is. You could even have like your basketball team come play football. They should still win that game. That's the rule for Gardner Webb and Evansville. Although, if you remember, Evansville baseball did make Tennessee go to 3 games a couple years ago. They were right there pushing them. Right there pushing them. And that was the, I think that was the Tony Vitello game. The Tony Vitello quoting Webster's dictionary, calling Webster an American patriot. I'll have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure that was it. If you don't remember that clip, just right now, just Google Tony Vitello Webster. You can pull that up, and that is. Does anybody y'all don't remember that? Do you? Do y'all remember that over there from the peanut gallery in the back?
What's that?
When Tony Vitello a couple years ago, after the Evansville baseball game where they lost one, I think it was that one when he came out and was quoting Webster's dictionary and talking about how Webster was an American patriot.
I do not remember that.
One of my favorite press conference moments of all time.
I mean, he was known for some,
But
a few spicy moments here.
I mean, this was one that was, I mean, it was like, why is he so angry? And it was that, I'm pretty sure it was that weekend, and he was quoting the dictionary, and it wasn't quite up there with like Derek Dooley and Rommel, which for me still probably number one. You know, Dooley putting his old, where's Rommel? They got to find Rommel. That might be number one. Or Kellen Winslow's infamous soldier moment, which people of a certain age will remember this. Story time, Friday story time. This was the Tennessee-Miami game, I believe 04-03, somewhere around there. Tennessee goes down to Miami. It's kind of a boring game, but Tennessee wins it, snaps Miami's long winning streak down there at the Orange Bowl. And Kellen Winslow, the second, kind of an interesting guy. You can Google his name. He's had some interesting moments on and off the football field. But he had a play late in the game where he ran over a Tennessee defender and kind of flexed his muscles, and the Tennessee guy was hurt. And I don't think he knew the Tennessee guy was hurt, but he was frustrated. And after not doing much that day, and did like a big flex. And I asked him about that, and then he talked about it, and he said, I'm a flippin' soldier. He didn't say flippin'. And I think David Clymer, rest in peace, he and I were the only two Tennessee reporters down there in that like Miami locker room while that was happening. And this was like one of the earliest like turn of the century sports viral moments. And there for a while, you could just say, I'm a freaking soldier, and anyone would know exactly what it was and laugh. That one was up there for me, too. That was absolutely probably 1B with Rommel as the 1A. And then I'm guessing just behind that was one time the former Georgetown basketball coach yelled at me, and I laughed a lot. He told me that I was asking him leading questions, and he wasn't going to fall for it because his wife was a lawyer, and it was good stuff. It was good stuff. These were back in the days when things were a little bit more. You had a few more loose cannons out there. You know, you had SIDs, and they were keeping people in line, and they were doing the things that SIDs try to do, where, you know, you really kind of keep everybody on message. Don't say this, don't say that. Now it's manicured to a point where you almost never get anybody off the cuff. Back in the day, though, it was just like they had them on a leash, but it wasn't the tightest leash. And occasionally things would come out and people would not quite be media savvy. Kind of miss those days. I kind of miss those days. Those were days where you legitimately walked into a press conference not having any idea what was going to happen. And for me, someone who almost never does any sort of notes ever, almost never has a script. I got a couple things on here today because I needed to know what the lines were on the football games. But oftentimes I'll come in here with a blank notebook and just have fun. And as someone like that, you would go into, like, say, a Derek Dooley press conference or an interview with Derek Dooley. All you would need to know are just a couple of questions that you might ask, because you never know what he's going to say. And it might take the interview in a completely different direction. So you got to kind of have a head on a swivel. If you go in there too much and you're reading your notes, it drives me nuts when people do that. When people have their notes written out and they're going to ask the next question, and because of that, they're worried about the next thing they're going to ask, and someone will just leave the door wide open for a follow-up that's just great. And then you go, and on to the next. No, can we go back to the other thing? The thing that you were just talking about that was really good? The thing that you were off script about? Let's go back to that. Let's have fun there. And that's almost never going to happen with Josh Heupel. But he did make a joke yesterday. We discussed it with Emily Ray Cochran right there across from me. We discussed this, where he was asked about the quarterback situation, and he said, well, it's not like I can bring Phillip Rivers in as a free agent, which was timely because I think 44-year-old Phillip Rivers was called in as an emergency quarterback last week for the Colts. You could tell Heupel had that one prepared. He was ready for that question. He said, I know they're going to ask me about the quarterback. I know they're going to ask me about the portal. I'm going to try to unplug for a second, look like a human being. I'm going to go out there and say something interesting on the record. I'm going to make a joke. And it might distract you from asking the serious question, which I don't want to give you a serious answer to. But credit Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel. He stayed on point, laughed at the joke, and then still asked the follow-up question. Because that's what heroes do. So that was good stuff. And I miss those days of press conferences. It doesn't some of this now, hasn't the manufactured quality of it taken a little bit of the fun out of this? You don't want this to be like, you know, you're Henry Ford putting Model Ts off the assembly line, and you kind of walk in, you clock in, you ask a couple questions that you know the coach won't answer, but you got to ask them anyway because as a journalist, you have to say, we asked you for comment, even though we know you're not going to say anything. And then we have to prioritize what we're actually going to ask because we know we're only going to get 10 minutes a couple times a week. So what are the things you absolutely have to ask, whether he'll answer them or not? Whereas with Rick Barnes, dude, just ask him anything. He'll just go. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks. That part is fun. It keeps you just tethered to reality enough to where you remember, oh, wait, this is supposed to be organic, isn't it? It's why we cover news. It's why we cover sports, because we don't always know what's going to happen next. And it's interesting because if we knew exactly what was going to happen, you, the viewer, you, the listener, would not care enough. It would be boring. It'd be burning ants with a magnifying glass. What would be the point of that? You know what's going to happen. So that's what the purpose that Rick Barnes serves. But you ask questions, you get answers, you move on. And yeah, I just don't want it to feel robotic. Am I crazy for that? Or do fans really just like not care? Because there are a lot of fans that it's just the games. They're like, hey, I got things to do. I got a wife, I got a husband, I got kids, I got family, I got a job, I'm working 50 hours a week. I don't have time for all the other stuff. I show up for the games and I watch them, happy win, upset win-lose, move on. But then you've got the fans who really do care about all this stuff and like the real inside baseball fans. And for them, you know, you want to give them little treats here and there. You want to have fun while you're doing this. Or else what's the point of it? Sports are serious. Sometimes. They are a thing that provide, you know, pride for some people in geographically where they're from, where they went to school. You walk in kind of wearing the team shirt. You feel proud the next day when you're walking around, pointing at everybody, beat you guys. I mean, there's that part of it. But it's also supposed to be fun. Like, it's a big business and it's serious. I don't want us to ever lose sight of the fact that this is supposed to be fun a little bit. And I don't know why I just feel the need to say that sometimes. But this whole thing, sometimes it just gets so serious. Why so serious? I know that money's involved here. I know that you spend a lot of money, and I know tickets cost way too much, and it sucks for the fans. And you legitimately, entitled feels like a bad word to say. Most people treat it like a bad word. It's not necessarily a bad word. There are times where entitlements are fair. Like if I'm paying way too much money for a ticket, for travel, for hotel, for all these things, I am entitled to you giving a good effort. I am entitled to you taking this seriously. Now, I'm not entitled to you winning, but I'm entitled to you trying to win. And so when you see things that you don't like, yeah, you take a lot of pride in it and you want it to go a certain way and it doesn't, and you get upset about it. But this is something where being back in a newsroom has really helped me in a lot of ways, just personally. And I hope that the way I cover things reflects this for people. But I've always been just a news hound. Like, I just love it. I read it all the time. I consume it, whether it's reading, listening, watching, all those things. And you know what's going on just because you want to know. But for years, I've been a satellite employee in a ways. Like, I worked for the Chattanooga paper but lived here. You know, I is a kind of a one-man bureau. I spent years, 15 or so, working for a company that was headquartered in Nashville, and I lived here. And so I wasn't like in an office or in a newsroom very often, which I was reminded of on literally like my second day here when I was playing drums while listening to music, and John North nearly ripped my face off. God bless John North. I love that man. I love him. But he was just yelling. I was like, oh, sorry. I'm used to being in the office upstairs at my house by myself with me and my dog, basically. But I love being in a newsroom because you see things throughout the day, and you hear things throughout the day, and a lot of them are horrible. They're horrible things. And you're like, why has that helped you? That's weird, Wes. Or do you just like weird things? Well, maybe, but what I'm saying is it sort of reminds you what sports can be, which is hey, this isn't as bad as the other stuff. It can be. It can be awful. But if the average newscast is 30 minutes, 5 minutes of a sports, 4 minutes, whatever it is, and it could be like awful weather's coming, somebody was shot here, we're going to war there, this politician said this, people are upset with each other, there's fires in the streets, bears living on top of buildings, falling down, all sorts of just weird and horrible things. And then it's like, by the way, these guys put the ball in the bucket. By the way, this guy threw it to the other guy and he caught it and he scored a touchdown. And a lot of people who normally wouldn't like each other at all are cheering in unison. That's pretty neat. I like that part. And it's kind of been helpful to be back in the newsroom and kind of be reminded of that, we, at least in the newspaper business, we always called ourselves the toy department. And I don't know if that's something that translates to the TV side or not. Sometimes we share language, sometimes we haven't over the years. They're like, we'll refer to something as this and they'll refer to that. And that could be regional too. It could be any number of things. But we talked about things like, hey, we are the toy department. It's okay for like us, for entertainment people. It's okay to be an outlet from this. So if all we're doing every day is just bringing you bad news, how are we different from almost everything else in our world right now? How are we any different from that? We should strive to be a little bit different from that, I think. Doesn't mean that you manufacture anything. If something's bad, I'm going to tell you it's bad. I covered Tennessee athletics for a decade or so, where anytime anything good happened, it almost felt like it happened accidentally. Like it happened in spite of their best efforts to be bad, like they were at everything else for basically a decade. And so you get into situations like this season for football, for instance. And it's very easy. It's very easy. And you're not wrong if you do it, to say, this season could have been better. This team went 8-4. Really probably should have been 10-2 at worst. That Vanderbilt game obviously played out the way it did and it got ugly. But the other games, you're right there. You're right there. A couple of them are at home. Got to win those games. And so it's easy to say, and I just did it like an hour ago, just down the hall, talking about the year in review. And Emily kind of asked, where are things for Tennessee football compared to 365 days ago? And I said, well, let's call it 350 days because this was kind of after the playoff and all that. At that point, Tennessee right now, compared to right then, it's not been a step forward, clearly. And you can't say that it was. You're lying if you'd say that. It's different. It's not a year that you wanted it to be. But if you want to flip that question and say, well, what if I told you that day, 360 whatever days ago, that, by the way, your starting quarterback who you've dumped $2 million a year into is going to bail on you the day of the spring game and leave. His family will have some big show where they're trying to get more money out of you, and you're going to play a game of chicken, and they're going to leave and end up making less money somewhere else for a team that's not as good. So really, who wins there? I'm not sure anybody wins. But you tell somebody that day that's going to happen. And by the way, these two potential first-round draft picks you have at cornerback, they're both going to be hurt, and they're not going to play all year. Also, you'll have 2 or 3 defensive linemen banged up at different times all throughout the year, and your best defensive player, maybe, Arion Carter, halfway through the season, he's going to get turf toe, and it's not going to be the same. And if I told you that day all that was going to happen, and you can have an 8-4 record, I think you'd bite somebody's arm off to take that. Because the day Nico leaves, you're thinking, oh man, this could be a debacle. They went and found Joey Aguilar. He steps in, not perfect, but good player, does good things, and you go 8-4. And you say it could have been 10-2, yada, yada. Well, it also could have been 6-6. Could have lost to Mississippi State, right? Arkansas made it interesting there late. A couple of those things could have gone the other way. So, yeah. But the problem is you kind of have to take two completely separate thoughts who don't seem compatible, like the worst couple you know, and try to make it work. And so you have to have kind of two thoughts. And I guess they're parallel in a sense, but also perpendicular in a sense because you don't know how they're going to meet. You know, you, at some point, parallel, not going to meet, perpendicular, where's it going to go? I suck at math and geometry. But the point is, you have to sit there and say, on the one hand, the college football playoff starts this weekend. This Tennessee team just make a field goal against Georgia, make one of the 5 plays against Georgia to win that game. Oklahoma, make a couple of plays, you win that game. Alabama, don't collapse on the very last play of the first half and have that game completely change. Hey, who knows what happens in the second half? You do those things, at least 2 of those 3 things, you're in the playoff. 100%. You're in the playoff. And you say, well, Vandy's in with 2 losses, or not in with 2 losses. I think Tennessee would have had better wins than Vandy would have had at that point. And who knows what happens in the Vandy game if there's more stakes for Tennessee on the line. You would think not losing to Vandy is more than enough stakes. But judging by the way that game went in the fourth quarter, clearly it wasn't because Tennessee, for the first time I can remember in a while, just didn't play very hard. Didn't look like it on film anyway. So you have to sit there and say that. But also, if you think hard enough, go back to like 6, 7, 8 years ago, any time there, and the decade before it. Then 8-4 with a couple of bad breaks away from maybe being in the playoff. it hits a little different then. And if you also say, here's where you were at the end of spring practice, your quarterback leaves, all these things are going to happen, you're going to go 8-4. So that's why at the end of the year, it's like people say, here, can you in a minute or two describe what the feeling maybe should be around the program right now? No. In a minute or two? No. I could barely do it in an hour because it requires nuance and it requires looking at it from a couple of different perspectives. And so you sit there at the end of the year and say, where are things? If you're at a certain age, you remember MySpace. It was a hot thing there for a couple of years, and people had had relationship status. And you would be either like married, committed, single, and then there was, it's complicated.
Everyone remembers MySpace, but anybody remember LiveJournal?
The name, I don't remember the thing.
Oh,
Please
was
explain this
proto-My-
now because I'm curious.
LiveJournal was proto MySpace, basically. It was just more of a written form type thing. It wasn't a whole lot of other media you put on there. It was like a diary you shared with people.
It was like, here's my thoughts, world.
No, seriously, it was literally just that. It was
So
like,
Twitter with no character limits.
It was Twitter, but without the feed or anything like that. It was you made friends on there. Like it was only restricted to your friend group.
Oh, okay. So it was proto MySpace in a lot of ways. But they had that thing where the relationship status would be, it's complicated. And I got to tell you, at that period in my life, there were a few times where it absolutely and rightfully said, it's complicated. I'm not really sure. We were just yelling at each other. I don't know if we broke up or not. Maybe. I don't remember. It's complicated. I don't know. We might be back together tomorrow. I don't know. There were a few of those relationships in the mix. You just never really knew. You weren't sure. It's like, it's complicated. That's kind of what it is with Tennessee football right now, I think, because you can look at it just through the lens of this could have been a playoff team, maybe should have been a playoff team because the schedule was not bad, and it wasn't. And so, when you're looking at it from that standpoint, if this is like a binary thing, like at my kid's daycare where it's a green check or red check, that the daycare is like, you were good today, everything was good, a green check. If there was any kind of problem, red check. By the way, the kid is batting 100% on green checks. Seriously, not one red check. Tons of them at home. None of them at school. Not one. Proud of you there, Hank. But right now, if you look at it from just that red check, right, this season, in that way, red check. But then you go overall health of the program. I still go green check there. For overall health of the program, I think I'm still at green check. How fitting is it that we're talking green and red around Christmas time, by the way? But I think if you look at overall, because you got to have perspective on this. Like if you just became a Tennessee fan like last year, this season sucks something fierce. You're not happy, right? You're not happy. You're not in a good place. If that's all you know, then you're like, oh, yeah, I went to the playoff last year. Getting excited about this. Here we go. Oh, wait, what? 8-4? This stupid. But if you have any kind of perspective on where things have been, I think it's okay to say, this wasn't ideal, but I understand it. Let's not light everything on fire. Let's make some changes, which Tennessee is doing, clearly. Going out and get Jim Knowles, big time. People who said Josh Heupel never gets rid of assistant coaches, won't change things, too stubborn. No. Whether he wanted to or was made to, I don't know, but he did it. And he's gone out and made that change. Now, the next step in that process, how serious are you going to be about really fortifying in the portal? Tennessee, to its credit, has not had a lot of portal misses. They've just not gotten a lot of guys. They've not really brought in like major across-the-board reinforcements. That requires a different kind of bankroll. And Tennessee has still. The books aren't open, so you can't see all this. You go based on what you hear, what you report, things you see, things you hear. They might still be skewed a little bit more toward the recruiting NIL stuff than some of the portal, like back end proven guy NIL stuff. And that's maybe the next step. Like, let's see, Jim Knowles comes in and says, okay, you want me to run my defense? You're paying me to be one of the highest paid coordinators in the country. I get results everywhere I go. Things, if you give me a couple years, things always look good. The years that I've had that were bad years, you would consider okay years. But this is what I need to go do that. You got to go get me a couple LBs. You need to go get me some more dynamic guys at safety. You need to go, I need this stuff. If you want this to be run at a high level in the SEC, this is going to have to happen. But we've seen already that Josh Heupel will go make a replacement that he needs to. And so people who said he won't do that, well, he just did. He just did. Now, I think maybe the guy at Washington would made more sense in some ways, but you can't complain with getting Jim Knowles. You just can't. Full stop. You just can't. Great hire. And now, okay, let's see how you handle this disappointment. Let's see how you take from this what you can in terms of maybe let's not get into another situation like with Nico and with Boo Carter where we're kind of holding somebody hostage here. And you know what? You know how you can tell that they already might be learning a lesson there too? Look what's going on with Legend Bay. The kid wants to sign with Ohio State. His mom won't let him, makes him sign with Tennessee. He kind of publicly pitches a fit about it, which, hey, fair enough, and makes it clear that he wants to be somewhere else. Tennessee talks to him for a week or two, then gives him his release. You want volunteers, not hostages. That's kind of what you're not going to get anything. No matter if somebody is just there for money, you better make sure that they're professional enough to live up to their end of the bargain. Because I'm fine with you negotiating your contract. That's the way of the world now. Negotiate what you're worth, in your opinion, and find somewhere that's going to pay you what you think you're worth. But once you sign that, you're in. For the duration of that year, you are in. You're not going to be pouting in the offseason about this or that. No, you signed it. You're here. Go play. At the end of the year, have another talk. That's where I stand on it. But I think you're seeing with the Legend Bay thing, maybe Tennessee's already learning that lesson a little bit too. And so if we're sitting here keeping score of things and saying, okay, this didn't go the way I wanted it to go, and this obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to go, so can you tell me, explain to me what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how you're not going to let it happen again? And I think we're seeing already a pretty good track record here of, okay, I can see the same problem you can see. Here's what I'm doing about it. I'm not a sunshine pumper. I'm just saying, if we're keeping score of, do you understand the problem? Do you understand the assignment? Yeah, I think he does. I think he's showing right now that he does. And if you go back to where Tennessee was for a decade there, again, that's not the standard. It never will be the standard. And it's not okay. But 8-4 and a couple breaks away from the playoff hits a bit different when you remember those days. So there's a lot of volatility right now in the market. It just kind of is what it is in college sports. If you can keep some stability, if you can keep the structure of your program in place, bring like-minded people into it, keep them there, keep the vibes good. Everybody that comes into work wants to be there. They're happy to be there, or at least be professional enough to put in an honest shift. I think you're seeing some stuff there that's pretty good. So that's why where's the health of the program right now? Well, it's complicated. That's why. Because you see things that didn't go the way you wanted them to go, but you also see work being done already to correct that. Now more needs to be done, and if it's not, we'll keep score of that. You're darn right we will. We shoot it straight here. If it doesn't cut the mustard, it doesn't. We're going to tell you that. Or at least that we think that. Remember, there's a difference in what we think and what we know. We're very clear about those things. But that's why I think you can basically make this whatever you want it to be and not be wrong. If you want to look at this from a purely negative standpoint this season, you can do that. And I can't say you're wrong. Nobody can say you're wrong. It's disappointing. It is. You're going to watch college football playoff games this weekend. Tennessee's not in them. You think it could be. You don't like it. You shouldn't. But look at some of these replacement coaches that are being put in this season. Look at the way this is going. Tennessee's been able to save some money on some of this stuff and maybe can use that to different ways to fortify the places on the roster. Okay, so you do these things, work on the clock management in the offseason, obviously. Got to get some things ironed out there. Just, hey, most people are just like, okay, you did something wrong. Explain it to me. Tell me how you fix it. That's what reasonable people do. And I don't know if we're in a reasonable world anymore, but maybe we could be. That's why it was kind of complicated. But I promised we were going to talk about some basketball now. We are going to get to that because media this morning got to speak with Tennessee assistant coach Steve McClain, who is almost, I kind of think of him as Rick Barnes' lost brother. When you see him in a second and listen to him, you're going to understand why some of us think that. But this guy, I mean, he was a head coach at Wyoming, at Illinois, Chicago, and he's been an assistant over the years at a few JUCOs, TCU, Colorado, Indiana, Georgia, Texas. Everybody in the game basically knows Steve McClain. And because there was a turnover at Texas in the offseason, he comes back on the market. Tennessee's able to get him. Rick Barnes loves working with the guy. And he's an older guy, but he's been around the game for a long time, knows a lot of stuff, and has really good perspective on a lot of things. And I thought it was interesting to hear him this morning talk about Nate Ament, who lots been placed on this young man this season at Tennessee. And hey, you're expected to be a lottery pick, potential top 5 overall pick in the draft. Tennessee's paying you basically 7 figures and not just one 7-figure to be there. You have expectations that you can't run from those. But it's not, I think the other day, a friend that I've known for a long time in the business, Jeff Goodman, works for Field of 68 now, said that there may not be a player in the country who there's a bigger difference in by March than Nate Ament. A guy who might look like a completely different player by then because of his physical build, because of the things that he'll take time under Rick Barnes to learn. And there's things about him that I think I'd be careful about kind of burying this kid already. He is putting up good numbers, and he's doing that as an 18-year-old who's number 1 on the scouting report every night, as Steve's going to tell you here in a second. But before I finish talking about it, I think I've set it up enough now. Let's go quickly over here. We've got a few minutes of Steve McClain talking about Nate Ament, and then we'll come back and talk about it and wrap it up. But here's Tennessee basketball assistant Steve McClain.
Where have you seen Nate make the most progress?
Well, again, the average fan evaluates Nate off one thing, what? Points. They don't see the passes. They don't see the plays that he makes off the ball. They don't see that other guys are getting opportunities because people are so locked in on him. But where I see his growth, he's starting to figure out where his shots are coming, and now he's shooting them with confidence. And again, everybody wants that to happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. You're talking about an 18-year-old young man that everybody built up that now has been the attention of every team. That's not an easy thing to do, to be a freshman and you're here on the scouting report. You'd love to be like the kid at Illinois, Wagler. I love him. He's a freshman. His uncle played for me. But he has no pressure when he plays. He's got 4 veteran guys out there, and he's just kind of out there going, whew, I'm open. I'm going to shoot it. This is fun. Whereas Nate's had to have the pressure and grow. And what you see is him learning where his shots are coming and then finishing them at a high level. And what I love about him, whether it's going good or bad, you have no idea because his expressions never change. He's locked in, and he only cares about one thing, winning. That's all he cares about. He could care less if he's got 12 points, 13 points, 0 points. He wants to win.
Yeah, Barnes has mentioned that a couple of times that teams are game planning for Nate like never before. What is that transition and pressure like for a freshman to get accustomed to so much attention?
Well, I think it's an unbelievable transition, and it's really hard. And there's veteran players that can't deal with it. We've all coached them. And Jacoby deals with the same thing every game. Those two are at the top of everybody's scout report, and how are we going to stop them? And that's where I think the growth of our other guys is really what's going to make us become a team that could play for a national championship, because those two are going to keep being who they are. You're not going to affect Jacoby and Nate. And so now the growth out of the rest of them is really what's going to change us down the road. So I think Nate has handled it well. I think in high school he was treated that way, but now he's seeing it at another level. And the greatest thing you can talk about, and it goes back to your question about this group of young men, yesterday's their day off and they're all in the gym working on their own. There isn't anybody satisfied, well, we beat Louisville. No, I got to get in and get better every day. And Nate is for sure one of those guys. He was in here twice yesterday. Like, he's hungry for more and knows he's got to get better.
That
Where'd you
was
see
Tennessee
Nate make
assistant Steve McLean. And again, if you look at, first off, do you like our Christmas lights, everybody? We've incorporated them. I was going to say we sneak them in, but I'm already mentioning it. I'm excited. We can change so many things back here. There's some bells and whistles in this place that, we got a lot of plans for this place, and it's going to be very, very awesome. But to the point on McLean, by the way, do you see why I kind of call him Rick Barnes' long lost brother, or they're at least cousins? They got to be, right? They got to be. Even though the accent's a little different, right? Steve's an Iowa guy. Rick Barnes, Hickory, North Carolina. It's the way they think about the game, talk about the game, their expressions. You see why there's a lot of similarities there. And I think those points on Nate Ament are pretty solid. Because I'm pulling it up right now. I meant to do this, I meant to do this during when we were playing the shot, but just the numbers on Nate Ament right now, what he's doing. 16 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 2.8 assists per game. And is he right now the best defensive player on the planet? No. Sometimes do people get kind of into him a little bit with their physicality and bother him with some of that stuff? A little bit. But the overall game, I think sometimes you forget to take a step back and say, wait, this is an 18-year-old kid averaging 16, 7, and 3. It's pretty good. And what do you expect, 30 a game? It's this is where the whole expectations versus reality versus fair reality kind of come into play. And why I think there's reasons why. I've said before, and I don't know if this is going to happen, but we have seen Tennessee teams at times in the Rick Barnes era, they've kind of peaked early in the season because they work really hard. They're very well coached. They're very well drilled. And going into a season when a lot of teams are kind of finding out who they are, Tennessee kind of already knows a little bit about what they are. So they hit the ground running on their stuff. And then the other teams have some younger guys, maybe a little bit more NBA upside in some cases. By the end of the season, they've made a couple tweaks here and there, and they're different, and they're hitting their stride at the right time, and boom, they go on and win the thing. And, yeah, should Tennessee have had a little bit more postseason success? Absolutely, yes. But I think this is a team with some of these new pieces. Amon and Gillespie, as good as they are, and they're both really good basketball players, this is, for both of them, their first year at Tennessee. And so, and it's Amen's first season in college basketball. And I don't care what you're doing on the AAU circuit. I don't care how good of a prep school you've gone to. I don't care any of those things. You get to this level, you are playing guys older than you, who sometimes are often stronger than you, and they push you around a little bit. And when you're number one on the report, it's just like what McClain said about the freshman at Illinois. He kind of gets to not hide because everybody knows he's good, but you got a bunch of these older guys around him who all know that system and know what they're doing. He just kind of glides around out there and makes some plays, and that can't happen for Ament because he goes into the report every game. By the way, Ament and Gillespie. Ament, you see that 6'11" kid who's going to be one of the first names probably off the board in the NBA draft? Why don't we try to guard him really hard? Hey, he's skinny. Let's get really physical with him, which is why I like the Tennessee's playing him on the perimeter and not kind of making him go in the paint and deal with all that, because then I would worry about him physically being worn down by the end of the year. But because of some of these guys incorporating into what they're doing, and plus Berg's new, Abrams new, like a lot of these guys, they're new to this system. Estrella not able to have a full off season, and now he kind of comes back and he gets hurt a couple times, and he's just now kind of getting back to practice every day and doing some stuff. There's ability on this team to go be significantly better by the end of the year. Now that's, you got to stay healthy-ish. You know, there's a couple things that you're not doing as well that you need to improve. Consistently shoot the ball a little bit better. Don't foul as much. My goodness, get better at the free throw line. Jalen Carey, maybe aim for the square, big fella. I don't know what to say at this point. He's struggling. He's good at everything else, but he's still the free throws have been a little tough, which is complicated because he's a big guy and he's going to get fouled a lot because he's big and physical. He's going to go to the line a lot, so they gotta sharpen that up. But and he's new to the program too this year. So there's all these pieces that are coming together. Now, it's college basketball, so the same could be said pretty much everywhere, right? But I just look at this Tennessee team, and there have been times in the past where I've said, this team's really, really good. I don't know how much better it can get. Like, I see, you know what you're getting from a lot of these players with the good, the bad, and you know they're good enough to be right there. Are they good enough to get over the top? I don't know. I think it's unfortunate the past couple of years they didn't get to a Final Four, stopped at the Elite Eight. I think if they'd been in a different bracket, played a little better, maybe one or two games different in the regular season, they're not having to play Houston in the Elite Eight. They're not having to play Purdue in the Elite Eight. But that's how it goes sometimes. But you knew with those teams kind of what, maybe Connect could go for 40, maybe Lanier could go for 35, and that puts you over the top. But you know what you're going to get. But a lot of these things with Tennessee right now, you don't know. And is that a little bit frustrating in the moment? Yes. Does it mean that you might lose some games you ought to win? Yes. But again, look behind me, green and red. What color do you want the check to be? If it's a green check, you can sit there and say, hey, I don't know what I'm getting means I could get something really good later. Because if I know that you are a B student, I know you're a B student, I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get a B, which is going to be one of the better ones in the class, but you're not going to be the best. You're not going to be the valedictorian. You're not going to get the big trophy, right? But if I don't know what I'm going to get, but I can see you're talented and you got some stuff about you, hey, maybe a little spit and polish and we'll make an A out of you yet. And I see that with this team. I see that kind of upside there. I look around the country, there's a lot of other really, really good teams out there. Really, really good teams. Really good teams. But Tennessee, to me, I see that as they get more incorporated, Ament and Gillespie, and kind of get married more to this Rick Barnes system, carry everything he's out there doing, the growth in Okpara offensively, what Estrella could do when he really gets back in shape and is getting back in the groove. Ethan Berg, the last game, looked pretty good in that game. Troy Henderson looked pretty good in that last game. Amari Abram, he's just fun. That guy's a fun player, does a lot of neat things. And Amari Evans had one of the funniest games you'll ever see the other day. He plays, I think 7 minutes, commits 5 fouls, also scores 7 points on 3 of 3 shooting. But that's packing a lot of action into 7 minutes. He fouls out or he would have played probably 15 minutes, but he fouled out. I mean, you see where this thing's going, where it could go, I should say. You don't know where it's going. If you knew that, you go to Vegas and make a lot of money. But again, there's a lot of things to think about with this team that, hey, this could be better by the end of the year. So again, we got a whole weekend now to think about this. Green check, red check, what are you? Either way, you put them together and you get a Merry Christmas. So that's good. But we will be back, I would say 23 hours, but that's not accurate. We'll be back in, I think, 71 hours is what we say on Friday. We'll call it 71 hours. We'll have a lot more football and basketball to discuss, and we'll have a lot of Merry Christmas stuff to discuss as well. So until then, be good this weekend. If you're going on the roads, be safe, have fun. We'll see you in about 71 hours.